Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1000B, and today's date is June 17th, 2016, and the title of the episode is State Department Officials Say Now is the Time to Attack Assad. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded an interview with Fabian Calvo. He is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So you can go right over there and you can listen to the interview, or you can come over to the X22Report.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, you'll see the interview there. Or you can go to newssentinel.com. Same thing, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, you'll see the video there. And for those people that are writing in, congratulating me on 1,000 episodes, thank you very much. But what we're doing here is we are tracking what the government has been doing, what the economy is doing, all the propaganda, all the lies, and I put the episode numbers on each one of these so we can easily go back to something, because it's a lot easier to say, let's go back to episode number 761 than to try to search for the title. That's why I have the episodes on each one of these reports. But for those people who like the numbers that we hit 1,000, thank you very much. Actually, for all those people that supported me from the beginning up to this point, thank you very much. For those people that donated, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. A lot of people think that I have an entire staff that's working for me. No, it is just me. I am the one who does the pictures, the recording. I upgraded. I used to have a $14.95 headset. Now I upgraded to a $29.95 headset. I try to use free software as much as I possibly can, like Audacity. I do throw them a little bit of donation money to keep them operational. And for those times that I have to purchase software, I do. But all of this is being done to keep everyone informed, to make sure that we're keeping the government accountable, tracking all the lies and everything that they've been doing, the destruction of the economy, and we are going to continue to do this until we, the people, take back our country. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, we've been tracking what has happened in Orlando, and the case that Omar is the shooter is not making sense whatsoever, because we're getting reports that there were many different individuals inside the club. We're getting reports that there were snipers. There were 2 people holding the doors closed so the people couldn't leave. We're not seeing any dead bodies. We're not seeing blood. We don't see pictures of hundreds of ambulances taking all these people away, because they're telling us it's over 100 people. And when we look closer and closer at this individual, we are seeing a completely different picture than what the media is trying to present. He wanted to be a police officer. He went to school to become a law enforcement type of officer. He worked with the FBI. He worked for the G4S security company. He worked with DHS. And then all of a sudden, we see that he was caught in a documentary that was talking about the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. And there's a video clip that surfaced showing him talking about the environmental disaster while working as a security guard. Now, he was filmed. This was called The Big Fix. And as he guarded a beach at night in Pensacola, Florida, where the entire cleanup was taking place, he says that the workers were cleaning up the spill, saying they wanted the disaster to continue so they would have jobs. So this is another strange occurrence of Omar, and we're starting to see that he might have thought that he was doing something completely different in this club, because we're seeing a lot of propaganda out there. I wouldn't be surprised if they killed him right off the bat, and the rest of the operation was done by these other shooters, and he had no idea what was going on. And what we're seeing right now is the United States government central bankers, they're trying to fit all these different agendas into this Orlando shooting: gun control, terrorism, spying on the people. And a lot of it is getting overlapped. A lot of it doesn't even make sense. But we can see there were some legislation, some bills that were in Congress where all of a sudden Congress was going to be voting on them, and now they turn their votes around. An example would be the legislation to rein in the warrantless surveillance of the NSA. And what happened was the amendment was going to ban two types of backdoor surveillance on Americans, but it was defeated this Thursday after what happened in Orlando. They feel like, oh no, you know something? We should have the spying now. Very unbelievable. We know that President Obama is pushing other agendas. But what we need to take away from all of this is that we all need to protect ourselves, because we can see our representatives, they're not going to abide by the Constitution, the rights of the people. So wherever you can, use encryption for your email. Wherever you can, lock your house. Store your valuables outside of the banking system. Don't leave cash in the banking system. This is my personal opinion. I don't do this. Just leave enough to pay your bills. Make sure that you're careful on what you do on the internet. Make sure that you're using devices like Pocket, where you can slide your phone, your credit card into these sleeves that intertwine with metals that blocks the signal. That is something that you can do to protect yourself. There's many different ways that you can protect yourself, and we should all be doing this. Now, the FBI, and we talked about this before, they built a massive facial recognition database. But there's a problem with this now. And we knew that they were going to take this to the next level. The FBI right now, they have access driver's license photos databases from 16 states, as well as passport and visa photo databases from the State Department, which were used to compile a facial recognition database of millions upon millions of Americans. And these are not just Americans that have been accused of a crime. They're everyday Americans mixed in with those people who have committed crimes. The FBI right now has access to about 411 million images for use in their facial recognition program, which should disturb everyone. Now, the FBI ignored the Privacy Act, which requires government agencies to disclose how they harvest and use personal information, such as ID photos, license photos, passport photos. And we see right now that the FBI is building this gigantic database system to keep track of everyone, because they'll use facial recognition to track where you are. And when they start putting this up around the country, they'll know where you are, they'll go into the database, and they'll track your movements. Now, of course, the FBI, as we know, they want to exempt the provisions in the Privacy Act completely of the database that they're creating. They want to continue to collect data on the people, but they don't want to disclose how it's all being collected. How convenient. So the spying apparatus is on full throttle. They're not slowing down whatsoever. Now, something Obama said on Thursday when he was down in Orlando, where he said that the tone of the country's debate on firearms needs to change. To me, what this is telling me is he's taking this to the next level. Forget about executive orders. Forget about trying to say, oh, you can only have this many bullets. You can only own this type of weapon. He is now taking it to the next level. Now, the first thing they're doing, and this is coming out of Jay Johnson at the Department of Homeland Security, they're going to say that gun control is now a national security issue. Very interesting. And we have to remember, their main goal is to remove weapons from the people. Now, how would you do this? Remember a couple reports ago, and I talked about it many, many times, we talked about lists. We talked about the government spying on people, correlating all your information, all your purchases, and keeping these lists until they are needed. Well, here we are. We know there's a no-fly list. Now, they want to take that no-fly list and add people to the list where they cannot purchase weapons. Very interesting. So, where are they going to get these people? How are they going to get these people? Most likely from the people that have weapons already, because they know that there are certain people that were checked by the FBI through the database. They've been tracking purchases of what you purchased. And we're going to see a lot of these people being put on this list. Now, once they're put on this list, you don't know how to get off. And it's not saying that, oh, you can only have this many number of bullets, or you can only purchase that type of weapon. You can't have a weapon at all. This is what they're trying to push. It hasn't been done, but this is the direction that they're trying to do. They're trying to move forward with lists. Now, you know, we started out with a no-fly list. Now they want to put people who own weapons on this list. What's next? The people that talk out against the government, they're going to go on the list? So we're already see list building at this point. Now, people say, oh, no, this could never happen. Well, the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, she came out and she's pushing for this. She issued a statement saying they want to see Congress approve the no-fly, no-buy plan. This is completely unconstitutional. This is a violation of our rights. You can see where all this is headed right now. And everyone should be scared and nervous. We need to take control back of our country, because these individuals, they're not working for the people. They're working for banks, corporations, and foreign governments. Now, the U.S., they haven't slowed down in provoking countries. Now, we know they're provoking Russia, they're provoking China, they're provoking North Korea, and I think their main target is North Korea. It might switch off, they continually do this, but they're hoping that North Korea is going to do something if they provoke them long and hard enough. Right now, we see the USS Mississippi, which is a nuclear-powered submarine. It is headed towards South Korea, where they're going to bring it into port. And of course, North Korea is saying this is a provocation. It's a direct threat. And the U.S. is saying this is routine. Don't worry about it. But something very interesting about what North Korea is predicting. And this is coming from the country's foreign ministry. And I remember there was a former general, which we talked about on a report, saying that something was going to happen in North Korea, like a regime change or some other type of mission inside of North Korea, and it was going to happen very soon. Because right now, the foreign ministry is out there, and they released a statement saying that the United States is planning something in the month of August. That is very interesting, because we've been looking at many different indicators about what is going to happen in August, and all of a sudden, this comes out of North Korea, saying that the Obama administration, they're planning maybe airstrikes on their nuclear facilities. Maybe they're planning a regime change. We don't know. But they believe from their intelligence that something is going to happen in August. So let's add this to the indicators that we have, because this is something else that's going to happen in this time frame. Now remember, we do have elections coming up. If we do get into war, they could call the elections off. Out in Yemen, we see the puppet government, Hadi. He is saying that he's going to have to withdraw from the peace talks once again. He continually says this because the Houthis are not giving in to their demands. Well, they don't have to give in to demands. You're supposed to work together. But we can see the battle is still raging in Yemen, and the U.S. government wants their puppet government back in power. We see out in Libya, the Obama administration is throwing its weight behind Libya's new UN-backed government, and they're going to be giving them $56 million in aid in the coming months. So we can see already the U.S. is backing the government. We already have special op teams on the ground, and they're trying to force this new government on the people. Remember, this government was not elected by the people. The government that they have in Tripoli, the elected government, that's the government they want. So we see already, where's democracy? Where's the elections? Where is what the people want? It's non-existent. And this is proof that the U.S. could care less about this. And not just the U.S., but the other nations. Now we see Iraqi forces, they have entered the center of Fallujah, and they've taken a lot of land back from the Islamic State with no help from the U.S. We see the Iraqi flag has reportedly been raised over the mayor's compound. And we can see the Iraqi forces are really making their moves inside of Iraq to eradicate the Islamic State. Now, we're seeing a lot of fighting going on in and around Aleppo. We know Russia and the U.S., they announced the ceasefire in Aleppo once again. Looks like it's not holding whatsoever. Every time they mention a ceasefire, it looks like Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, they break it as soon as they possibly can, and then it's blamed on the Syrian government and Russia. And what's very interesting about all of this is that the Syrian Marines, the National Defense Forces, they're continually making a large-scale offensive in Latakia, and they're moving closer and closer to the Turkish border crossing. And it looks like they've been liberating a lot of the villages and towns along the Turkish border. And it looks like they're getting ready to cut off the supply lines coming out of Turkey into Syria. And this is going to be a huge problem. And then we have to think back, why is the U.S. and the French building bases that can support C-130 transport planes? Because once they lose this corridor, they're going to need those bases to bring in weapons, supplies, and the terrorists. And we can see this is why they're doing it. It's a backup plan, and they're continually going to be bringing in more and more of these military assets. We see Jordan is complaining that Russia has bombed their new Syrian army, new forces that have arrived, and Russia's saying, well, that's kind of impossible because we didn't have any jets, any troops. We had nothing in the area. So we are not responsible, once again, for what has happened there. Now, John Kerry and Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman, they're in Washington, and you'll never believe what they're discussing. They're discussing what happened in Orlando, and they express their shared commitment to continue their cooperation in combating the spread of violent extremism. Really? Because the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, they're the ones who are supporting the terrorists. But they're going to fight terrorism. This is all a propaganda show, because we know the truth. And if we really think about this, Saudi Arabia, the United States, they're responsible for the brutal and genocidal war on Yemen. They're in Iraq. They're in Syria. They're in Libya. And we can see what they do in their own country. So really, when we look at this, they're going to fight extremism. They are the extremism. Now, we're getting more reports of what happened out in Syria. Remember when there was a hospital and the United States government central bankers was out there saying that the Al-Quds hospital, well, that was hit by Russia and Syria. And then Russia came out and showed satellite photos that no, this is not true whatsoever. It was already hit. Well, Dr. Nabil Antaki, a physician in Aleppo, he said something very interesting. He said this hospital didn't exist until the terrorists set it up for their own people. The al-Nusra factions, Al-Qaeda, set up this hospital for their own people. And they used this as a false flag to convince the world that this hospital was bombed by Russia and Syria. Now, the U.S. is coming out with another word for safe zone, for no-fly zone. They're calling it a no-bomb zone. And they're saying these areas over here are no-bomb zones. Well, it's the same thing. Safe zone, no-fly zone, no-bomb zone. They continually try to come up with all different words to explain what these areas are. And Russia is saying, no, they're not. Now, the State Department, they have come out and they want Assad removed. Forget about the Islamic State. We need to go after Assad. And we can see right now a lot of the State Department officials signed a document protesting U.S. policy in Syria, and they want Assad removed. Now, 50 U.S. diplomats, this is not very diplomatic if they just want to remove someone, are out there saying that it's time. It's time to go after Assad. Now, this looks like these are the neocons. And Secretary of State John Kerry, back a couple years ago, he was leading the charge against Assad. And we have to realize nothing has changed whatsoever. Now, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said that this internal memo on Syria, signed by the 50 U.S. diplomats, is very important. It's an important statement. And he's going to discuss this when he gets back to Washington. Now, Russia is warning, saying that these calls by officials in the U.S. State Department for strikes against the Syrian government cannot happen. Russia said that Moscow is opposed to such military action and that it would plunge the entire region into complete chaos. Well, this is exactly what they want. We see Putin out there saying that the people must decide who they want as their president, who they want as their government. Putin said Syria is facing the problem of terrorism as well as internal and other important political problems, stressing that Moscow is not seeking to expand Assad's authority, but rather to boost confidence between the various components of the Syrian people through political negotiations. He said the West is supporting the color revolutions and the events of the Arab Spring, which has led to chaos in the Middle East. He stressed, saying that most important today is not to allow the disintegration of Syria. If the situation continues as it is today, well, there's going to be a huge problem. This is the worst scenario that could happen. He said the settlement of the Syrian crisis requires a new constitution and to hold presidential and parliamentary elections under the auspice of the UN, adding that Assad agreed to this already. He added that Washington must in turn influence the Syrian opposition in order to move forward. Well, the U.S. knows what's going to happen here. They know the people are going to vote for Assad. They can't let this happen. Because once the people do this, what are they going to say? Oh, this small group of paid mercenaries, they want the president removed? No, it's not going to work. So right now, Syria, Iran, Russia, they're looking to have new talks with each other because they see something is definitely building in the West. And this is what we need to watch. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.